know, I can't very soon. Then I just fight. Once this year, I didn't fight. I fight the book. You should fast.
Ushers, please, I want to announce that we kindly make sure we find a comfortable place to have a seat, because anywhere from now, the academic procession will file. So please, get a seat for yourself. Ushers, please do that one smartly. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may we now rise for the academic procession, please.
This is not yet working. Okay, it's working. So this will enable us to move more quickly, I believe. Yeah, this is where we are. So the budget reallocation to education went from $2 billion in 2010 to $1.36 billion in 2024. Meanwhile, the number of institutions are doubled. And this includes allocation to TED Fund for infrastructural projects. The source of the infrastructural deficits in Nigeria's universities is clear for all to see. As we speak, they have introduced legislation for another 211 new tertiary institutions. This is from a newspaper 3 days ago. We need to tackle the problem of financing. Budgetary allocations need to go up. But of course, we must also source for private financing from alumni and from philanthropists. In terms of infrastructural development, TED Fund has been a game changer in Nigeria's publicly funded universities. But I believe that TED Fund should focus just on infrastructure. Other mechanisms should be found for funding other things, such as research, publications, academic staff development, and so on. All these extra things that are being loaded onto TED Fund. Should TED Fund support infrastructural development in private universities? That's a loaded question. My own answer is a qualified yes. As of April 2024, there are 115 public versus 150 privately owned universities. Although undergraduate enrollment in those private universities constitute only about 5% of the approximately 2.5 million students in Nigeria's university system, this proportion is likely to rise with time. And the government owes a duty of care to these students just as much as it does to those in the public universities. Since these institutions generate revenue that goes into private pockets, it is unconscionable to require public funds to be funneled to such organizations without requiring something tangible in return. One model that could provide a lesson in this regard is the grant in aid principle that was deployed in the secondary education sector in Nigeria's western region in the 1950s and the 1960s. The regional government, having introduced free primary education in 1955, was keen to expand the number of secondary school places available for the huge number of pupils completing primary school. The government put substantial resources toward providing grants to mission and community schools to expand classroom spaces, which, while keeping fees comparable to what was being paid in the few government-owned secondary schools. This unique public-private partnership made it possible for many pupils to attend these non-government-owned schools at an affordable cost, while also strengthening the infrastructure in the aided schools. Adapting such an approach in Nigeria's current university system will allow TED Fund to contribute towards infrastructural development in private universities, but with stringent conditions attached, especially in terms of access by students without any discrimination. The fees charged should be comparable to what is charged in public universities, which, by the way, needs urgent review. We cannot play the ostrich and be burying our heads in the sand and pretending that all is well. TED Fund will also be able to contribute towards the development of strategic research infrastructure in the private universities that can enable researchers domiciled there to contribute meaningfully to globally relevant research that is responsive to national needs. And that will not be unique to us. It's happening in so many other countries already. Of the infrastructure has come to the fore. For several weeks earlier this year, learning activities were severely disrupted by the disconnection of electricity supply to the university buildings on the University College Hospital campus. Other Nigerian universities have experienced the same fate in recent times with the upward review in energy tariffs. This must be corrected by providing sufficient funds to the institutions to pay their energy bills, and efforts concentrated on installing renewable sources of power in Nigeria's universities. Other forms of infrastructure, which we described in detail earlier, require urgent upgrading to keep up with centers of learning globally. We must constantly renew pedagogical infrastructure so that the system keeps pace with new knowledge and embraces new approaches to learning, such as metagogy, so that we can attract new learners. With advances in technology, the nature and versatility of distance learning has changed. The system has to embrace this modality for both undergraduate and postgraduate learners, using both synchronous and asynchronous engagement to remain relevant. In this regard, it's essential that undergraduates, especially those from disadvantaged secondary schools, that they are given educational literacy to enable them to take full advantage of the digital infrastructure. This can take the form of integration of digital literacy into the general studies programs for undergraduates, particularly as they are coming in at 100 level. With the widespread adoption of open distance learning, the university should also consider the award of what are now called nano degrees or micro credentials for those who have attended and been assessed in short specialized courses. Attracting scholars from other countries should not be abandoned, even if the situation in Nigeria is tough. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. My medical school class in the 1970s had students from 18 different countries, from Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. We need to recreate the conditions that attracted students from far and wide to Ibadan, so that UI can be a truly global university. The duration of doctoral training in our university must be addressed. In the 8 years from 2016 to 2023, UI produced an average of 372 PhD graduates annually. That's about 3,000 in all. A survey of some of the graduates revealed some troubling trends. The median time to completion was 84 months. More than 20% of the students had an academic interaction with their doctoral supervisor at intervals of longer than once a month. Whilst the ratings for the expertise of the supervisors was high, poorer ratings were given for adequacy and consistency of guidance. All of these point to a need for more training for doctoral supervisors and a proper orientation of students at the commencement of their doctoral training programs. Fortunately, this is being addressed by new initiatives on supervisor training and the doctoral academy in the postgraduate college. Moving on to research. One major bane of the conduct of research in many universities is the tendency for researchers to operate in silos, not communicating with one another as they make progress in their individual journeys. The better paradigm is to walk across scaffolds and embrace transdisciplinarity in research. The landscape for knowledge generation has evolved rapidly over the past 2 decades in the direction of transdisciplinary research that integrates knowledge across academic disciplines and with non-academic stakeholders to address societal challenges. It involves co-production by all stakeholders, scientists and other members of the community, to jointly define problems, frame goals, and reach consensus on what information to gather and how best to collect the information. Transdisciplinarity in research requires the fusion of intellectual frameworks from diverse disciplinary perspectives to create a common framework for collaboration in solving societal problems. When researchers work across disciplines, it becomes easier to establish a community of practice, a platform to discuss common challenges and potential solutions across disciplines and across institutions. This facilitates capacity building for research and will generate synergy so that cells and systems can flourish together. I'll move now to quality assurance. Setting minimum standards in education and enforcing same through accreditation visits is a time-honored method of quality assurance. Whatever critics may have to say about these accreditation exercises, there is little doubt that they have contributed to maintaining some measure of quality in the system. There is need for an audit of what students have actually learned. I bring this from the perspective of a practitioner in healthcare, where audit is taken seriously as a means of maintaining and improving standards in practice. The curricular framework already stipulates how student assessment will be done. What is needed are external audits. Universities do this to some extent by having external examiners for final degree examinations, but that system needs revamping. Employers are already auditing the quality of our graduates by setting up screening tests for those seeking entry-level jobs in their organizations, but they do not provide us with feedback. The National Universities Commission should set up a system of standardized tests in different disciplines, which will be taken by samples of students selected from various institutions, not for certification, but to provide valuable feedback to the institutions to improve teaching and learning. Mobilizing resources for educational activities. The solution to the problems of financing of higher education lies in having a multiplicity of sources of funding. The government should continue to provide subventions, supplemented by infrastructural interventions by TED Fund. Sponsors of students who are the immediate beneficiaries of the education provided by the universities ought to contribute in the form of tuition fees and other charges. In this regard, the establishment of a student loan program by the federal government of Nigeria should be lauded because there is recourse for truly indigent students. But other stakeholders, such as alumni and philanthropists who seek a better society, have a major role to play in sponsoring deserving students. Alumni are critical stakeholders that need to be courted assiduously. While there was an attempt to launch an endowment fund for the then University College in the 1950s, it was the alumni of the University of Ibadan who spearheaded the creation of the current version of the UI Endowment Fund in 1974. And many of them remained as trustees for the fund for decades afterwards, being captains of industry and well-versed in investment strategies. They guided the expansion of the fund while investing proceeds in educational activities at the university. One of the visible legacies of the fund is the International Conference Center sited near the second gate of this campus. The university must continue to encourage alumni to give back to the institution that nurtured them. And that effort starts whilst they are still students here. Students must be treated so well that they will remember the time spent at Ibadan with fondness and wish to recreate the same experience for subsequent generations. The University of Ibadan Alumni Association is a worthy partner in the development of UI, but the number of graduates of the university, which now numbers in the hundreds of thousands, is too large to be properly mobilized by one central body. The time has come to have discipline-based subgroups of alumni, having associations which could be affiliated with the central body. The College of Medicine started this in the year 2000 when Provost Temitayo Shokunbi persuaded Professor Oladeko Akinyinka to be the foundation president of the Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association, ICOMA, worldwide. Since then, ICOMA has played a significant role in mobilizing resources for activities in the college. The current provost, Professor Omigbodun, having obtained an allocation of land from the University College Hospital Board of Management, persuaded ICOMA to launch another fundraising drive to mobilize resources to build a new hostel complex for students of the healthcare disciplines on the premises of UCH. That effort has yielded nearly $5 million United States dollars. And the project is being speedily implemented as the need for accommodation among the students is acute. Other disciplines in the university have also launched discipline-based alumni groups, which have been making an impact in various faculties and departments. This move should be strongly encouraged by the leadership of the university. The umbrella University of Ibadan Alumni Association needs to re-engineer itself as a coordinating body for affiliates, while remaining a mechanism to mobilize alumni for institution-wide intervention. I will now proceed to give a summary of my recommendations. We have alluded to an era when quality was the watchword when it came to infrastructure for Nigeria's universities, and a later era when things seem to have deteriorated. I want to quote a popular newspaper columnist, Lasisi Olagunju, who asked in one of his recent columns, "Why are our golden years always in the past?" he provided a response. The past was obviously better handled. We need to change that story and begin to handle the future much better than the past, so that the golden years can lead to platinum years and even better. I will sum up my recommendations. Some of them I've already mentioned earlier, but I believe it's important that we wrap things up in a concise way. The leadership of the system must endeavor at all times to motivate all cells to give their best and ensure that they receive any additional training they need to function at their full potential. There are so many best practices from within and outside Africa that can be adapted in this regard, such as training programs that have been developed for students and their supervisors, as well as those for the personnel that are essential to sustain the research enterprise in the system. There should be a sustainable system of support for staff undertaking postgraduate studies, especially sponsorship to academic meetings and conferences that are relevant to their portfolios. And I believe that females in the system deserve some special attention because they bear a very important role in society, that of childbearing. In Qatar, for instance, we recognize that role specially. Qatar Fellowship age limit for women is 5 years more than that of men. And nursing mothers are provided with additional support to our events. I believe we can all learn a lesson from this. Doctoral students should receive the necessary support from their supervisors and other operators of the system. Timely completion of doctoral studies within 4 years should be the rule rather than the exception. Undergraduate students working with postgraduate students and faculty as mentors should be actively enlisted to participate in knowledge production in the system. Leaders at all levels must pave the way in building a shared vision, encourage mentorship, and empower new leaders to emerge in preparation for transition so that there is continuity in the system. Leaders should build consensus, establish trust, and foster collaboration and teamwork. The system needs autonomy from government agencies for optimal performance, but it must also allow for internal autonomy in the different organs and tissues within. The appropriate strategy to adopt is one of coordinated institutional action that is driven by information derived from the faculties and units, while promoting and supporting effective local initiatives in those same component parts, so that the university can be assured of long-term success as a center of learning and innovation. The intervention by TED Fund should stick strictly to infrastructure. I think I've said this about 6 times in the last 3 weeks. That's because I so strongly believe in that. Other mechanisms should be established for research funding and for staff development in universities. Conditional funding of infrastructure in private universities by TED Fund should be permitted with adequate safeguards to minimize the risk of state capture for private gain. For sustained success, it is vital to see research and research management as a business. If the proper investments are made by way of an excellent research management structure, there will be great dividends down the line. One bane of the current state of research management in Nigeria's federal government-funded universities is keeping third-party research funds in the Treasury single account in the central bank. The bank is a central bank. It is ill-equipped to handle commercial banking. So it doesn't respond promptly to the needs of researchers whose funds are trapped in their system. And that has led to a significant drop in new grant funding for institutions such as ours that are caught in that bind. The federal government needs to address the situation urgently before things deteriorate further. Collaborations with other universities and research institutes and partnerships with industry are essential for progress. Such networking is almost always beneficial to all involved, and we must adopt flexible models of collaboration and funding which can be of great help in mobilizing resources. I will also touch briefly on emoluments of university personnel. It needs to change. Nigeria needs to pay the university staff well, at least at the same level as those other countries that are at the same level as Nigeria in terms of development. This is needed for the system to flourish. Finally, I wish to suggest a composite model of interventions that should be introduced together to bring improvement to the system and build a vibrant academy. To improve tertiary education, the 4 key issues of financing, democracy, the national economy, and the training and retention of personnel must be pursued together. Financing for infrastructure, research, scholarships, and competitive wages. Academic freedom and innovation can only thrive where there is democracy, defined as rule of law, societal peace, freedom of expression, and collegial decision-making. The national economy determines how good the municipal infrastructure and services and the employment outlook after training will be. To cap it all, the best graduates must be attracted for further training and retention as university teachers. In concluding, in building a vibrant academy, it is essential to keep in mind that vibrancy is a journey, not a destination. Without the cells, there is no organ, not to talk of the system. If the cells are nurtured, the system will take care of itself and remain vibrant. Past performance is no guarantee of future success. Institutional vibrancy is nurtured by a network of committed cells acting as change agents, working consistently to build synergy in the system. We must never relent in building consensus, establishing trust, fostering collaboration, and encouraging teamwork. I now need to do some acknowledgement, and I will try to be as brief as possible. I acknowledge God Almighty, for in Him I live and move and have my being. I'm grateful for the mercy, grace, and life of God that works within me and has made it possible for me to do all things, including delivering this trilogy. I acknowledge the Vice Chancellor is unavoidably away for approving that I deliver this 44th university lecture. I acknowledge the person who is in the chair today because her portfolio is in charge of coordinating the university lectures, and she's been excellent in assisting me to prepare for this lecture. I acknowledge all the other principal officers, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, especially the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, who is seated here. I give special thanks to the Registrar, Mr. Saliu, and the University Librarian. They assisted me in gathering materials for this lecture. I give thanks to the Bossa and the Deputy Bossa in charge of grants for their assistance in project implementation over the years. They are the people who make it possible for us to access our funds, together with the financial controller in the College of Medicine. I acknowledge the 12th Provost of the College of Medicine. She played a key role in my delivering this lecture. I acknowledge the Dean, Faculty of Clinical Sciences, Professor Ogundiran, for the great privilege of nominating me to deliver this lecture. I acknowledge all principal officers of the college and other members of the executive committee. I cannot read out every name, but I'm grateful to you all. I acknowledge the head of my department, Professor Akinyinka. Is the only person with a hyphenated first name that I know. And all my other colleagues, I won't be able to mention all your names. I acknowledge the recent retirees from the department, Professors Ojengbede, Adekunle, Adewale, Elesomi, Arowojolu. Some are here. I know Professor Arowojolu is watching from the United States. My other teachers who retired a long time ago, many of them are seated here. Emeritus Professor Oluwole Akande has attended every one of the 3 lectures. Professor Babatunde Adenusi, Professor Oladapo Ladipo is the one who arranged sponsorship for me to go for subspecialty training in the United Kingdom. And all the others. I pay special tribute to my mentor in gynecological oncology, Professor Tunji Adeleye. I extend special gratitude to the CATA focal persons in UI. Professor Uche Isiugo Abani is on the extreme right in that picture. And Dr. Lufunke Fayon, who succeeded him, she's on the left. And she has been a wonderful research collaborator. I recognize all those who assisted me in gathering the materials for this lecture. Special thanks to Professor Akinyinka, the former Vice Chancellor. He provided me a lot of materials. Professor Yoguju Igbe, the Provost of the Postgraduate College, and then the staff from the CATA Secretariat in Nairobi. They've been very helpful, those from the CATA office in Ibadan. I gratefully acknowledge the editorial work of Dr. Akinyinka or Omigbodun and Mr. Tunji Oladejo, together with the staff of the UI Publishing House. I extend gratitude to all CATA partners, especially those who served with me on the CATA Board of Management, those who served on the Executive Directorate, Alex Eze, Sharon Fon, Catherine Kibutungi, and those who did the heavy lifting in the early days, especially Chima Izubara, Caroline Kabiru, and Joseph Gichuru. I thank the Deputy Provosts of the Postgraduate College who have been working closely together on the activities of supervisor training and the UI Doctoral Academy, led by the Provost of the Postgraduate College. I extend special thanks to all CATA alumni and fellows in UI. Many of them are here with us in this lecture. I thank all partners in the West African Network on Biomedical Education, especially John McDermott and Stephen Allen, who traveled to West Africa from the UK several times to get the program started. I thank the course directors, Ayolu Atosin and Tunde Odukogwe, and the pioneer graduates that are still working to build up the program. Mayo Awolabi, Adeshola Odole, Bamidele Kokola, Roderick Lassen-Reindorf, and Mustafa Bitai. I extend special thanks to the people I worked closely with when I served as Provost of the College of Medicine. Let me start with Professor Olufemi Bamiro, who was Vice Chancellor. I don't know whether he made it to this lecture. He was at the first one. Is one of the more consequential chief executives that UI has had. Among other great achievements, he coordinated the winning bid that brought the Life and Earth Sciences Institute of the Pan-African University to be sited here in Ibadan. That singular achievement brought a lot of resources to UI and has been a major boost to the institution's internationalization. I thank the principal officers of that era in UI and those in the College of Medicine. I won't be able to mention all the names. I'm particularly grateful for the foundation laid in the college by the past provosts, many of whom are seated here. I thank the University of Ibadan class of 1980. They were the first ICOMA class to organize a reunion and give back to the institution. I want to especially thank those of them who remained to serve in the alma mater. Sojifa Samadi, Adema Lomo, Shegun Ogunlade, and Lai Shitu. You guys were there for me when it mattered. Special greetings to Moses Adeyanju, my brother-in-law. And he was the other student who joined in those experiments that we were doing in anatomy department before he grabbed my sister. And I acknowledge all the others in our class. I can't mention everybody. I acknowledge my classmates from All Saints School, Oshogo, and Loyola College, Ibadan. I acknowledge all my teachers, especially my first teacher in primary school, Mama Grace Okoji. I don't think she's here, but she's still very much alive. She's approaching 90 now. I acknowledge all my teachers in Loyola College, my teachers in medical school, and my teachers during specialty training in obstetrics and gynecology. I want to specially acknowledge Mrs. Dupe Onodeko. She was my tutor in preventive and social medicine. And Dr. Tony Maringo, who was very consequential to my postgraduate training. I'm eternally grateful to the 4 teams of surgeons who took care of me when I was on the verge of leaving the planet prematurely, nearly 2 decades ago. The teams were led by Dr. Dolapo Afuakwe, Professor Shegun Ogunlade, Professor Juwan Rotiba, and Professor Temitayo Shokumbi, respectively. I thank the other doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, and other members of the healthcare team who assisted them. I acknowledge specially all my international research collaborators. Richard Lilford is right here in front. And we've been working together for nearly 15 years now. He's based now at the University of Birmingham. Frances Griffiths and our colleagues from Warwick, Jackie Stott, I still met with her this morning from King's College London, Senga Pemba from Ifakara in Tanzania, Bruce Bickard from the University of Cape Town, and many others. I acknowledge Jerome Strauss and Christos Kutifaris, with whom I worked when I was at the University of Pennsylvania. I thank all my research collaborators from Ibadan and other institutions in West Africa. I've listed some of the names, but I won't be able to mention them all. I wish to thank my colleagues in the West African College of Surgeons, especially Emmanuel Ezeome, our president. I want to thank all past presidents, of whom my teacher, Professor Lajide Ajayi, who is seated here, is now the doyen. Is the oldest, is the most senior past president of the college. I thank all members of council, and especially those who succeeded me as chief coordinators of college courses, J.K. Ladipo, Benjamin Ugu, who is watching from the Gambia, and the current deputy, Adiza Usman. I'm also grateful to my colleagues in the other college, the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria, from our president, Peter Ebeibe, to my faculty chair, Deji Oluwole, and others. I acknowledge the Dokita editorial board and alumni of the board, especially the editors-in-chief who have worked with me since I became chair of the board 22 years ago. Most of them, unfortunately, are now in the diaspora. I thank members of my church family, Anglican Church of the Messiah, Bodija Ibadan, from the vicar Reverend Sonia Adetule, to all ministry leaders and others. I extend courtesies to my diocesan, Bishop Akinfenwa, and the diocesan of my home diocese, Bishop Babatunji. And I also want to specially thank the Right Reverend Titus and Mrs. Bolatito Olanyinka of Ogbomoso Diocese. I'm really grateful to my friends over the years. I can't mention the names, but they've been very, very supportive, and I'm really, really grateful for having gotten to know you. I want to thank members of my extended family who have been consequential in my academic journey. Dr. Bimpe Odetola and my other cousins that are listed. They've been really, really wonderful, and I've had to lean on them from time to time. I want to specially acknowledge my in-laws. From the Olori Ebi, the first female university professor in Nigeria, Professor Adeton Ogunsheye, to the entire Banjo family of Odoegbo Ijebode. I acknowledge Auntie Tunu Nicole and her descendants in the United Kingdom. I'm grateful to my sister and brothers-in-law, Olufunto, Ayodele, and Adeyemi, their spouses, children, and grandchildren spread out over 3 continents. It's a family filled with love and where support is always available. I acknowledge the head of my paternal clan. He's a Harvard graduate, Professor Adeyemi Mosadomi. All my uncles, aunts, cousins from Ile Olobado. I similarly acknowledge Elder Oladoshu Awoyemi, the Olori Ebi of my mother's family, and other members of the family. I am grateful that I belong to such a large family of enlightened people and community builders on both sides. I want to specially acknowledge my eldest sister, Mrs. Olabisi Adetuibi, who arranged for me to start A-level studies at the Polytechnic when I left Loyola, and from whose house I was admitted to UI. It was in her husband's team that I had my first taste of academic research. I'm grateful to my elder brother, Dr. Akintola Omigbodun, my younger siblings, Dr. Jumoke Adeyanju, Mrs. Yetunde Bolaji, and Reverend Oyegoke Omigbodun, and all their spouses, children, and grandchildren for the filial love that binds us. I thank God for the parents who brought me forth and were my first teachers, the Venerable Julius Ladunjoye Omigbodun and Chief Mrs. Regina Olatide Omigbodun. That's their picture at the rooftop party we held for them at my father's 90th birthday. They have both made the transition to eternity, but I can never forget their sacrifices for me and all their children, both biological and others. I thank God for Akinyinka Oreoluwa, our son, and Iyeyinka, our daughter. Iyeyinka is seated here with her daughter. I thank God for our husband, Wabena. All of us are in that picture. All old doctorate degrees, except the latest addition, Ayo Somyame. Her time will come. Her name derives from the joy she brings. Our children have all been a tremendous source of joy for us, and their insight and counsel at various times have been invaluable for me. Oreoluwa, thank you for the editorial work on the manuscript for this trilogy. I am blessed to have family across West Africa, with my mother-in-law, Mrs. Taiwo Joyce Banjo, hailing from Sierra Leone, and my son-in-law from Ghana. Now, this one doesn't want to show. It must show. My beloved wife and partner of the past 38 years. She's indeed the bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. I thank God for her life and the positive influence she has been as we have continued this pilgrimage together. She plays so many roles in my life that I could not possibly enumerate them all. Thank you, my dear. Let me end with the words of Paul in the 17th verse of the first chapter of his first letter to Timothy. Now to the King eternal, immortal, invisible, to God who alone is wise, be honor and glory forever and ever. Amen. Thank you for your audience.